Throughout the Second World War, there were many people who collaborated with the German enemy, and they were classed as traitors of their own people. These men and women betrayed, and some paid the ultimate price for this, as they were years after the war, led towards gallows or execution structures. One man who suffered this fate was Antonin Kozisek, who inside of the walls of Pankrac Prison in Prague was led up to his execution post. On the same structure that many war criminals and traitors were executed upon, Kozisek waited his turn. His method of execution was pole hanging, and the executioners claimed that this was more humane than using a drop gallows. But what did Kozisek do, and what were his crimes? To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Antonin Yaromil Kozisek was born in 1905, and as a young man, after finishing his schooling, he wrote for a newspaper as a journalist. He took other jobs and travelled around Europe to different nations, but after returning to Czechoslovakia, Kozisek settled down. He continued to write for newspapers, and was even sent to Spain to report on the Spanish Civil War, but he was working at the time in which the Nazis had risen to power inside of Germany, and Kozisek's most notorious actions took place within the Second World War. In May 1939, he managed to visit France and Britain, and at one point he was even to meet with Winston Churchill. But he had been building good relations with the Nazis, and he was allowed to visit Danzig by the Germans before they invaded Poland. After he got back, he became an editor-in-chief for newspapers, and continued to travel and report on the war. But in his writing he was backing the Nazis, and was also writing and distributing pro-Nazi propaganda, and this is something that would come back to haunt him. As the Second World War came to an end, Antonin Kozisek was arrested on the 5th of May 1945, and he was tried a few years later. He was brought to trial alongside 4 other newspaper editors, and was accused of journalistic support for the Nazis and the German occupation, and in maintaining close relationships with the Nazi occupation authorities. During World War II, high-ranking brutal Nazis such as Reinhard Heydrich were brought to Czechoslovakia to instigate a reign of terror and horror onto the country and nation. In this capacity, men such as Heydrich had many people strung up from lampposts in attempts to terrorise the people. The Nazis needed to scare the Czech people into submission so they could work as hard as possible, as the workers were the ones who were actually arming large parts of the German army, producing weapons and also a huge amount of armaments. But Kozisek's writing was said to have helped the Nazis to instigate their awful campaign against the Czechs, and he was actually brought to the court accused of treason. During the Slovak national uprising, it was claimed that Kozisek handed over military documents which had been left behind by retreating resistors to the Germans, and that he had passed this vital information to the German enemy. He was also accused of writing anti-Semitic articles and anti-Czech articles, and in this a court judged he was working for the German occupiers as a traitor and an informant. Because of this, Antonin Kozisek was sentenced to death, and he was to be executed despite his clemency appeals. On the 26th of March 1947, at the age of 41, Antonin Kozisek was brought from his prison cell inside of Prague's Pankrac Prison, and he was taken to the courtyard where his execution post and pole was found. He was to be executed using pole hanging, which the executioners would claim was actually more humane than using gallows or other methods deployed by the Allies. They said that within a minute death could have occurred. The executioner and his assistant took possession of Kozisek and passed ropes around his legs to secure them, and they then passed this rope around a pulley at the bottom of the post. He was then hoisted off the ground and was held in position using a chest sling around his middle. The executioner then passed the ropes around the top of the post and secured the noose around Kozisek's neck. When everything was checked, his assistant released a drop, and the executioner forced the condemned's head to one side to try and dislocate or snap his neck. Antonin Kozisek was one of a number of journalists who, at the end of the Second World War, paid the ultimate price for the fact that he wrote articles that were deemed to have been collaboration with the enemy. He was someone who was condemned for treason and for being an informer to the enemies of the Czechs, and inside the walls of Pankrac Prison, he was subjected to pole hanging. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, And once again, thank you so much for watching.